so let's let's get started then. Okay. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with what the circadian rhythm means, but probably I see you, Daniela, saying no. But that's the point of this presentation, to explain you what it is and how important it is for us to actually pay attention to it and to sync our bodies to the natural circadian rhythm. Okay, so Laetitia, maybe we can put the presentation in full screen now
Yes,
and
sorry.
start with the
Yes,
first
sorry.
slide.
Yes.
Okay, so next slide, Laetitia, please. So to sum things up a bit and just to introduce here into a deeper level into the quantum biology field, your body is a water battery powered by sunlight. If you think about what the main composition of your body, we're 70% water in volume. However, in molecularly speaking, we're 99% water, which means that most of us is made out of water. And that water is energized by the sunlight. Okay. So I'm going to explain how important the sunlight is for us. And this is just the premises. In other, if you come to other of my presentations, I talk more deeply into the water itself. But for the purpose of the presentation today, I'm just going to focus on sunlight mainly. So next slide, please. So the circadian rhythm is the guardian of our health. And why is that? Well, next slide, Laetitia, please.
Sorry.
Um, so so why do we need, because what does that mean, the circadian rhythm? The circadian rhythm is the rhythm of the day along the 24 hours, basically. And why? Because our brain needs to tell the time. Why does it need to tell the time? Because every cell and organ has its own clock, which tells us when we are supposed to be digesting, defending, healing, building, detoxing, etc. When we need to be ready for action or burn fuel versus when we are supposed to sleep, when to make hormones or neurotransmitters. So if you look at it, every time of the day is serves a purpose for our body. Our brain will put every single action, will tell every single cell to perform an action at a specific time. And if we don't do it at a specific time, it means chaos. Okay, so the bad timing for our bodies means chaos. And I'm going to give you guys example of what that means more practically. Can we go to the next slide? So, how does our body tells the time? We call them the Zeitgebers, in other words, timekeepers. And light is our primary Zeitgeber. The second Zeitgebers are temperature and food, but they're secondary. The first one we need to keep on, we need to focus on, is light. When our circadian rhythm is out of sync, which is dysregulated body clock, your brain can't tell the time. That is a massive stressor which brings your nervous system in fight, flight, or freeze mode chaos. And we're going to talk about how it impacts us more physically. So, our master clock is located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus, which is 3 centimeters behind the eyes. And that gives us a clue of maybe why I'm wearing that type of glasses at this time of the day and in front of my computer. But I'll extend on that later. The master clock in the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, receives light signals from a light sensing protein in the retina of your eye called melanopsins. Your skin also has photoreceptors. So that means through your eyes and through your skin, your brain gets the signal from the light, which tells it what time it is on the day. So next slide, please. Now let's talk about something that you've all heard about, which is the blue light. We all talk about how blue light is quite negative for us, but when we talk about blue light from the sun, the one that actually appears at the right time, directly from the sun, it acts as a timekeeper for our body clock. It does balance our hormones and neurotransmitters. So it balances cortisol, leptin, serotonin, dopamine, and it doesn't disrupt our melatonin and sleep. Why? Because it comes at the right time, in the right moment of the day. And that's because we get it directly from the sun. And also, that spectrum doesn't come alone. It comes with the other spectrum of light, just the way I'm showing here in this graph. I don't know if you, yes, no saying. So next slide, please, Laetitia. Okay. No, I think, okay. So yes, sorry. Yes, next slide. I'm sorry, I got confused. In turn, blue light from screens will disrupt and confuse your body clock because it's, first of all, it's separated from the full spectrum. Usually you only have the blue light. It has other spectrums of light, but it's the most intense ones. It causes hormones disruption and imbalances. So it disrupts melatonin and sleep. And that's the one we're talking about is the blue light from your phone, your laptop, your iPad, light bulbs even. And even your TV screen are the type of blue light that will disrupt your circadian rhythm. What does it make? It is that it makes your brain think that it is 12 p.m. in June all year long. It also affects our blood sugar and cortisol levels because blue light actually spikes your cortisol levels. Because if your brain thinks it's 12 p.m. in the middle of June, then it means that we're supposed to be performing action. We're supposed to be in the middle of the day, we're supposed to be active, and we're supposed to be doing things. So, cortisol, which is our stress hormone, but also the hormone that is waking you up slowly in the morning, that is supposed to raise slowly, will spike with a lot of blue light. But if you follow the normal spectrum of light, when sunrise comes, for instance, it comes up slowly. Cortisol won't spike. It will make a nice curve and then will spike when it's supposed to spike, which is around solar noon. That's what we call it. So this is why that blue light from screens and even your light bulbs at home will disrupt your circadian rhythm. It will disrupt the signal to the brain that says and saying that it's a time that it's not in reality. Okay, next slide. So just to show you, there's an inverse rhythm between the cortisol and melatonin cycles. Cortisol is supposed to be high when melatonin is low, while the opposite, so melatonin is supposed to come up when cortisol is low. And we could actually even add the curve of leptin, which is also supposed to be high at the same time of melatonin. Actually, leptin, which is the hormone of satiety, which tells your body, your brain, that you're fed, you're no longer hungry, is supposed to come up at night. And that's the one who will also signal melatonin. And it's very interesting to notice that leptin, nowadays we talk more and more about leptin resistance, which is the precursor to insulin resistance, which in its turn is the precursor of diabetes. So nowadays we understand that light has a major impact on our blood sugar levels. So this is why it's also very interesting and important to understand how light impacts us hormonally speaking. Okay, next slide. So the consequences of our modern life living is that we spend 90% of our time indoors. And that has a massive impact because we're no longer connected directly to the sunlight, which is our main or the number one timekeeper. So, and that is one of the major things that is confusing our brains. So if you spend a lot of time indoors and in front of a computer, you've got a double whammy. So there's ways, of course, to mitigate that. But think about it. Our modern life living is truly impacting our health. And that's why it's so important to mitigate that with things I'm going to talk about now next. So when we talk about a good circadian rhythm, we know that it creates order. It helps building healthy and regulating ordering habits that can massively improve our overall health. When there is chaos in the body, there is inflammation. And I'm giving a few examples on this graph right next to us, but we need order to function properly and clean up inflammation. Good circadian rhythm slash body clock creates order. The wrong type of light, especially at the wrong time, creates confusion, uncertainty, and chaos. Short term inflammation or chaos is normal. The problem is when it becomes chronic. It provokes biological chaos. So, if you think about the type of things that can create inflammation, we can think about infections, for instance. Infections is a normal thing that we get inflammation because inflammation is actually a process that happens naturally for a body to cure. Again, the problem is when it's lingering and it's staying and it becomes chronic. Injury will create inflammation, but if it stays again, like for instance, obesity, which is also another source of inflammation, and that in that case it becomes chronic, then it in turns will lead into other types of disease and illness like cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's. We know that Alzheimer's, for instance, is we call it the diabetes type 3. It's also an inflammation of the brain, and that also is linked to a disrupted circadian rhythm. Like we can actually link every ailment nowadays to a disruption of our circadian rhythm because again we're spending 90% of our times indoors. Okay, so biological chaos, we get a messed up body clock, which also in turn will mean that our gene expressions become chaotic. Again, it will have an impact on how we express our genome. Chaos and uncertainty leads to anxiety. The confused, stressed brain sends out warnings. And our mitochondria, which are our main sensors in our bodies, will then turn on what we call a cell danger response. And that's when our cells start running on a different kind of fuel and start actually not running properly. They do it because they sense danger, and that's because the type of signals we're getting from the outside are not safety signals. I'm going to talk here a bit slightly about the depression. Depression is highly linked also to a lack of connection with the natural elements and especially with light. So it is definitely linked to circadian disruptions. Timings of genes that make protein that run tasks in the body are all over the place. Look at the graphic at the bottom, which shows how things are totally chaotic, and it becomes like a messy spider web. The timing in the body and the brain are totally off when we are disconnected to the circadian rhythm. So, why, in the context of nutrition, do I need to tend to my circadian rhythm? Diet is everything we take on a daily basis. So, it's the light and sound we absorb, it's the heat and cold we are exposed to, it's the information from food and drink we consume, where eating in season and at certain times make a massive difference. So I'm gonna actually talk about the fact that the importance of eating our diet in locally and seasonally, and why is that so important. The information and social media we digest is also part of the diet, and that is also very disrupting to our nervous system, generally speaking. It's usually a stressor. The water you drink and we produce is also part of the diet we ingest. Okay, so when we talk about the water we drink, that's very everyone knows that. But did you know that our mitochondria also produces water? And when our mitochondria are in the cell danger response mode, which happens when there's a massive disruption of our circadian rhythm, then we no longer produce that water, which we call metabolic water, which is a kind of water that is structured, and that is the source, the main source of our energy, and it maintains the voltage of our cells. So that piece of information is extremely important. Remember, I started the presentation saying that we are bodies of water, literally bodies of water that are powered by sunlight. If the water we produce in our cells and if the water we have in our cells is not structured, then we lose the ability to maintain healthy cells. And that is a very important concept to grasp. Planet Earth and nature and human energy that we connect to is also part of our diet. Don't underestimate the power of community, the power of emotions and people around you, because those are things that will also support a healthy mitochondria, because your mitochondria are sensors and they sense the environment. And thanks to that, we can actually rebalance or reestablish a good way of life. So that is also part of the good things that we the things we absorb in terms of nutrition every day. So light is our primary timekeeper. Things that I advise you to do to support a good circadian rhythm. See the sunrise to set your body clock. You have no idea how magical, besides or beyond the fact of the beauty that it is to watch the sunrise, but how important it is for our metabolic health, for our hormonal health, for everything, every system in our body, it is to see the sunrise. Because there's a spectrum of light at sunrise that is extremely healing, which is infrared light and red light. And I'll get into details a bit further into that. The second thing I advise you to do is to get more sunlight through the day. And yes, it's not possible for everyone to watch the sunrise, and I totally understand that. But if you can't watch the sunrise, at least watch, I mean, be connected with the light and directly connected without wearing glasses or anything through to the light along the day as often as you can. especially before 10:30 a.m. And really, it depends of where you are in the world, but we want to catch the UVA sun rays, and I'll talk about it a bit further. See the sunset. At sunset, we have the same kind of spectrum of light as we get in at sunrise. But remember something, it's when we wake up that we need to set our clocks. So that's why if I were to choose between the two, and if you were to ask me which one is the most important, I would say sunrises. However, sunset is so beneficial. And I'll give you an example. If let's say if you've been tanning during the day, and you're actually getting a bit sunburned, and because you exposed yourself a bit too much, the sunset and the the UV rays at that time, like the infrared light at sunset, will help the repair of your skin. This is how beautifully nature is done. So it's if you've exposed yourself too much during the day, think about keeping on exposing your skin in the evening to support repair. Same thing as sunrise and during UVA rise, what we call UVA rise, will prepare your skin for the exposition of stronger sun rays, UVB, for instance, or solar noon. It will prepare your skin to actually be not burn and actually be in the position of producing melanin, which is also something extremely important for our health. If you can't be outside at sunset, at sunrise, or if you can't spend too much time outside, opening a window is already something that is extremely useful. Even if it's just a little bit of a crack of the window, because light travels. So every little helps. Anything that will support you being directly connected to the sun will be important. Remember that nowadays all the windows and the glass are made in a way that they are energy efficient, so they don't let through those infrareds and red uh, spectrums of light, although they're extremely good for us. So this is why it's important to open a bit of the window to support direct light exposure. Very important. It's all very good to expose yourself to sunlight, etc. But you also have to do the opposite in the evening and minimize blue light by making screen reader or wearing blue blockers, or use a software like I have on my computer, which is called Iris, and supports actually it will change the tone of your skin, the screen along the day. And for um, just as an example, my phone is set on um, red type of screen, so I don't get the blue light from my phone, for instance. At home, use incandescent light bulbs in the house instead of LED witch flickers. Okay, we spoke about the nervous system and how mitochondria are sensors, and if they feel danger, they will put themselves in that cell danger response. LED lights are actually constantly flickering. We don't see it at the naked eye, but if you actually film your light bulbs or any lamps you have, and if you watch it on your screen, you'll see the light flickering, and your brain is sensing it. And that is actually quite disturbing for our brain. So it's very important to, in the evening, especially in the evening, to minimize the amount of light you have at home. And if you can switch LED to incandescent lights, I would highly, highly recommend it. 7, blue block, block blue light in the evening, avoid bright lights. And actually, right now, I'm wearing my blue blockers. And at this time, actually, at the evening, I should even wear this with this orange filter because the sun has already set, and I don't want to disturb um, the or inhibit the production of my melatonin. I want to minimize as much as possible any type of blue or green light coming from the outside. Um, so the other thing is avoiding screens 2 hours before bed as much as possible. And when you can't do it and you really want to have a good night of sleep, there's this type of red filter that works magic when you don't want to disturb the melatonin, your melatonin production. And I'll tell you something as a personal note. I've always been very, very sensitive to with my sleep. I've suffered from insomnia for many, many years, and I used to rely a lot on magnesium and melatonin as supplements to be able to have good nights. When I started to apply the basics of circadian health and circadian rhythm, I have since then no longer needed to use magnesium or melatonin to have a good night's sleep. And that is telling a lot because that I've been suffering from that for years. Okay, so just to a reminder, when we're seeing the natural light, it's very important not to use glasses or any type of prescription glasses included. So remember that because so we get the light through our melanopsin receptors in our eyes. That's extremely important. We do have receptors on the skin as well, but the eyes are the main ones. So it's very important as much as possible when we're outside to not wear glasses. And if you do need prescription, take them off once in a while. Take a, glasses breaks, if I may say. If you wear contacts, there's brands of contacts that actually let the UV through. And I can't remember the name of those contacts now, but I'll look into it for you guys. So next slide. So here's an article from the Scientific American Journal that explains here how each spectrum of light is impacting our brain and what impacts it has on every single hormone or production of things. So I'm not going to get into details into that, but if you guys have questions later on, we can get deeper into this. Just one note, when we talk about the microbiome and how gut health is so important, remember this thing, our microbiome is also affected by light and season. So SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is usually a gut motility issue as a result of your clock being off. And I can expand on that later on if you guys want to. So next slide. So the second time keepers are meals. The time where you eat will also inform your brain of where it is at during the day. So following the rhythm of the day and the rhythm of the season, which is depending on where you live, is extremely important. So just to give you some nutrition advice quickly, we become dehydrated during our sleep. So starting the day with a glass of clean, structured mineral water is extremely important. Remember, we're bodies of water and we need to drink great water. Breakfast is one of the major ways for a body to understand what time it is. Breakfast not only balances blood sugar, which will prevent our cortisol from rising too high too quickly, and should be ideally eaten between 30 minutes to 1 hour after sunrise. Those things are ideal points, but we can adapt that to everyone's living. I'm just giving advices of what are the best case scenarios? And obviously, we can't always do that, but there's ways to get around this. Having protein and fat are key for breakfast. Coffee or tea should only be drunk after we had proper hydration, we had sunlight and breakfast, and ideally after you have been awake for 90 minutes or more. Same rule for decaf beverage or for optimal circadian rhythm health. And avoid it after 12 p.m. Again, we're talking best case scenarios. And there are days, I will tell you, there are days where I do start with a coffee before having my meal. But I make sure I've been outside first. I make sure I've seen the sunrise, for instance. I make sure that it won't disrupt me. So there's other things to keep in mind with that. You want to eat in season because season is also very important. The same way we have a circadian rhythm, we have a seasonal rhythm, and our body goes through season differently and works differently along the time of the year and for good reasons. I'm not going to get into details into that, but it's extremely important. Also, every vegetable, every fruit you eat will bring light information that's given to your cells and will tell your body when it is and where it is at the time. So eating tropical fruits in winter is not such a good idea because you're actually giving a mixed information to your body. And there's also another thing that I'm not going to extend on, but it has other nutrients there, or let's say deuterium, which is a type of hydrogen that is actually very difficult for our cells to detoxify in winter. So, winter is a good time to fast depending on our metabolic health. In winter, we're supposed to eat less. So, if there's a time you want to do more fasting, that's the time where you want to do it. Okay, next slide. So, another second time keeper, it's the body temperature. And that is a very interesting one because we also been, bombarded with the cold therapy and all those kind of things that is actually extremely good for you. But there's a timing to do those things. So heat, the body temperature raises in the morning. So it's important that we give the opportunity of our body temperature to raise in the morning. And how does it raise? It's when we get cold. So getting out of bed and feeling cold is a good thing because it's going to force your body to raise its temperature. So if you get cold, your body will respond with raising your body temperature and raising your metabolic rate. This is the time when we start to be working. So slowly, not in a dramatical way, but slowly your body needs to raise its temperature. It also helps lower our blood sugar levels. So, for instance, cold plunges, cold shower, cold face ice plunge. If you're not feeling to get a cold shower just yet, there's ways to build up on this slowly, like doing a cold face plunge, or if it's still too much, you can actually start with cold plunging your wrist. And that's a good way slowly to build up your tolerance to cold. On the opposite spectrum, the cold for our body, for a body to get cold, that's when your body needs to cool in the evening. We lower our body temperature to be able to fall asleep. So anything that actually will bring heat, like if we, for instance, go to the sauna or take a hot bath, it will cool down, will make our body cool down because it will need to lower its temperature. Remember this: our bodies or keep our body needs to keep a temperature that is always in between a certain range. So the idea is if you get in a hot place, then your body will lower its temperature, and that's how we maintain things and we adapt to where we are in the day. So I'm gonna give maybe the now I'm gonna let Laetitia present the other timekeeper, which is movement, and that's her uh, area of expertise. So I'm gonna let her present those two slides.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. So let me continue and then give you back the word. So we talked a lot about the clock, the timing, the body temperature, the light. So I am a great believer in movement and movement outdoor. And why outdoor? Because, you know, this was explained. It's so good for our body clock. Now, another thing that we need to keep in mind is the timing of the movement. So unfortunately, nowadays we work and we are usually stuck at work between, you know, 8 to 6, 9 to 5, depending. But so we need to adjust and to see when we can actually move our bodies. One good moment to move the body, to basically wake up the body, is between 6 and 10 a.m. But when the cortisol is starting to rise, so we want to start moving, but we don't want to move too hard. We don't want to move too intensely because we already have a high cortisol level. And the body is also stiff and cold from the night. So when we move in the morning, it's nice to do some kind of movement to wake up the body, to get the system in alert, and to help also regulate the mood and regulate the metabolism for the day. Between 2 and 6 p.m., this is where when our body temperature is the highest and when we also have the highest level of testosterone. So it's the ideal time to actually do movement that requires more power. But unfortunately, as I said, between 2 and 6 p.m., usually we are at work. But if you are not, or if you have that flexibility, that's one of the best time to exercise strength and power. And between 6 and 9 p.m., which is most of the time when people are actually moving, for people who have trouble sleeping, it's not recommended to go into intense workouts and, you know, because, you know, it elevates the heart rates, it elevates the body temperature, when actually we should be sending the signal that the body temperature should be lower. So the latest you can do, let's say, strength training in the evening, I would recommend like 7 o'clock, 7, 8 maximum. If you are a good sleeper, you know, you can push it to 8, but it's after that, it's not recommended. Any other type of movement, like, you know, movement enhancing mobility or movement helping you to release stress, like yoga, are highly recommended because it actually helps you to put your nervous system in parasympathetic mode, which is relaxation, and therefore helping you to actually go to sleep. But movement anyways is good for your body. It also helps to regulate your cortisol level. So it's actually a good body clock keeper. Consistency, so trying to move at the same time on the same different days to regulate, to help regulate your body, regulate your metabolism is also recommended. But moving is better than doing nothing. So you can also just start there, and that's going to be good enough. What else did I want to say? Of course, movement helps, because when we are sedentary, it disrupts also the circadian cues. So we just need to move. I mean, I'm just not going to repeat. It's just a walk because we sit indoor all day and we are usually in front of the computer. It's very important to make the effort to get outside at lunchtime and to even just take a walk around the block to get exposed to sunlight or to light, even if it's cloudy, and to actually move your body. It's also proven that, we cannot focus for a long time, and that if you actually, after like 90 minutes, get up and move your body and go and do a few steps and come back to your chair, it will help you to refocus your attention. So every little step help. And movement also sends signal to the master clock. So Audrey explained this master clock that's in the brain. So movement is also contributing to that. And so this is all I can tell about movement, also as a timekeeper for our health and for our circadian rhythm. So I'll give you back the word, Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so important what Laetitia just said. And there's there's a way I talk about when I speak to my clients, it's not cigarette break anymore that you need to take. It's the light breaks. So go outside as often as you can during the day and be outside and having a walk at the same time. It's the best you can do for your health. So we spoke about the fact that we live in a modern world and we are actually using screens constantly. We're doing it as we speak right now. So the solutions and the resources I'm giving you here is when you're using your PC, as I said, you can download a software that is called Iris that will gradually change the lighting of your computer along the day according to the time. And as we're speaking right now, my screen is pretty much orange, and getting not only because of my my glasses, but also because it does lower the intensity of blue light. On your iPhone or your iPad, there's a function that is called that you can put, which is a red filter. And there's many YouTube videos that explain how to put that on your phone. On Androids and tablets, there's an app that is called Twilight, which you can download, and that works wonders. I use it all the time. Then the blue light blocking glasses, which is something I've invested on myself. And I'll be honest with you, the good ones I found are mainly coming from the States. And look, and there's actually a good brand here in Portugal that I can trust now. But it's important that they're tested. So the ones I got right now have three filters. There's the yellow normal one, the orange one for the evening, and then the red ones for later at night. And I really highly recommend having those. And that has definitely made a massive change. When I travel, for instance, in airports where there's plenty of artificial light, because artificial light is definitely a pollution, I always travel with that type of glasses on. Um, your lighting at home is also something that I'm slowly tackling. I actually, in the evening, we use salt lamps here in my house. And the salt lamps have the advantage of being very small lamps, and most of the small lamps you find are incandescent. And there it gives that nice lighting that is warm and looks like, the fire type of lighting. So it's very important to dim your light using incandescent if you have them. And there are, websites that now start selling LEDs that have, they're not incandescent, but they have the spectrum of light we want. Unfortunately, you won't necessarily get the spectrum through LED, and also you want non-flickering LEDs, and they do exist. So Another thing that I suggest for you guys to do is to measure your light exposure during the day. There's an app that is called My Circadian app, that will tell you when is UVA, when is UVB, and when is sunrise, when is sunset, and that also measures the lux outside. The lux is the intensity of the light, and this is one of the things that are extremely helpful for anyone that suffers from seasonal depression, for instance. Being, exposed to natural light makes a huge difference than being exposed to um, the artificial light when you are sensitive to this. So that's one of my big suggestions. So I guess we've pretty much finished the presentation now, and we can now open the questions for anyone that wants to put any questions here. Happy to answer them. Any questions? Laetitia, maybe we can remove the big screen, or just do the speaker, remove the presentation so we can see.
So sorry, Audrey, let me check where I am with this.
Just stop sharing your screen, I guess.
Yeah.
But first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for coming tonight. I know a few faces here, and I would like to say hi to Ludivine and to Daniela. And who else is here that I know? Hi, guys, and thank you so much for joining us. And yes, is there any questions that you would like to put through? And by the way, we can answer those questions in French, in Portuguese, English, Spanish, whatever rocks your boat.
I still need to process it. Maybe throughout the week, I'll have questions, as I put it into practice.
Thank you, Daniela. We had that talk, I think, a year ago. I did mention a few things to you. But I know it takes time to sink in, because when you realize how impactful it is, how big the impact it is on your metabolism, and how simple it is actually to address, when you start addressing it slowly. And yes, it is a process, because it implies a change of habits, but they're not complicated, and they don't necessarily mean you need to invest money in it. They don't cost money, and that's the beauty of this. I'm not here to give you a big list of supplements, and not saying that they're not useful. I'm just saying that things are so much more simpler than what we think they are. And this is one of the major things we can change from one day to another. And the impact is huge, 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 huge.
So get outside and get moving.
Exactly. And I make sure every class I take with Leticia, and she's here to confirm that, I do it outside. We do it online. I put my computer outside, and and even when winter comes, unless it's raining and you don't have a place to cover up, I would suggest to actually put on a sweater, put on a warmer thing, but do move outside as often as you can.
Okay, so I think we come to an end, and we are right on time. So thank you so much. Gita, do you have a question? I see a hand raised, or is it a bye-bye?
No, it's just to thank you for the
Okay.
that's it. And I went outside today for a walk with the dog, so I had a good time. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
So do I.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Sorry for
Thank you.
arriving late.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending. And yes, and I will keep you up to date with Fit Vibe Circle. I will be doing once a month. I will have a speaker, a host on the on the well-being related themes. So I will
That's
keep you
nice.
posted. And I want to thank you, Audrey, for